Why? I always have to get into these games. Why sort of do the controls escape me?
Because every game has different controls and some of them...
but I've played so many of them, so it should be like riding a bike.
Yeah.
Some things are, but this is not.
No, I think it's normal.
Crap. Why do I like that?
I think it's
Close
close.
the force officers.
Looks really good.
Yeah, it is a really nice...
Is
I mean,
this an upscaled version
a bit.
of the PS3 one?
Yeah. Oops.
Should you perhaps take out a sword?
No, there will be... Ooh, wait, maybe... No, maybe it's cheating. Oh, that's nice. My battery is getting low.
Yeah, you still
Get out the sword.
at least half an hour in there then.
Yes.
I think the kind of katana you were using before was pretty cool.
That would be fun. Let's do that.
You guys were talking a little bit earlier about how everything feels quite upscaled. And a large part of that is, like, the game obviously is very driven around sort of like mobility and scaling and moving over things and trying to make it feel like badass and like you're like a parkour expert.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the time when they talked about why they represented things bigger, it came down to two things. Either technically there wasn't enough space if you represented them one-to-one scale, or two, it's that feeling that if you put them one-to-one scale into the game, the sense of space is diminished. So if you upscale it, you get that feeling of grandeur and that kind of feeling of like the oppressiveness of some of these buildings that you get when you're on the ground there. Whereas if you represent them to accurate scale, you don't get that feeling. So it's kind of like an upscaling trickery to try to get a feeling rather than to get a accurate representation.
Yeah, that's actually another interpretation of the word upscaling, because I was merely talking about the fact that this was basically a PS3 game that they upscaled to PS4.
But they also...
But it actually makes sense what you say. It's true that they, I don't know, to create that false sense of everything is big, you know? You almost sit on the cat. That's not nice. Don't sit on the cat. That's not nice.
Never.
We're
Never. Give me the sound.
No, kitty, it's a bad kitty!
So let's get back to talking about this difference between authenticity and accuracy, which is something that's been going on in our chat as well.
What Tara was just getting at is authenticity and accuracy. I mean, of course, none of the Forts in the Caribbean, with maybe the exception of Morro in San Juan, Puerto Rico, is this towering. Or the Morro in Havana, maybe, but definitely not any random fort that just... You know, it just hangs around on the south side of Cuba like this one.
Yeah. But that's part of, I guess, the gameplay of Assassin's Creed as well. That has this
of course, you want to feel cool. I want to feel like a cool assassin.
And climb on stuff. And
yeah,
you
like
can't
I'm
climb
failing
onto
at
a
right
tiny
now.
fort.
I'm just sucking so hard.
Seriously, when I'm fighting, you hear me press one button every 2 seconds, and that's me just waiting for the counter and counter.
Yeah, I know.
If you ram buttons, you die.
Yeah.
I can ram buttons.
That's why you would die.
I would die.
Maybe you should play Street Fighter.
Oh!
I will own you at that.
Hubbard. I think the rappel up.
I'll try it once more, and then we'll have to go on, I think. Because this is just ridiculous.
Is the door open with you?
Nope, it's not, of course.
One of the things that I really like about the approach of Assassin's Creed with the like desynchronization, so it's that kind of idea. So like with Prince of Persia, right? It's like if you die, it's like no, that's not how it went. Like that's not the story. Whereas with Assassin's Creed, it's not saying like that there's one story. It's saying that you've moved too far away from what could have happened. I think that's kind of an interesting approach to narrative of the past, or like dealing with accuracy and authenticity, that there's that idea of leeway there.
No, that's why you also don't die, you get desynchronized.
Yeah, but the desynchronization basically is, if I'm right, are you still playing a dream?
Yeah, you're in a
dream,
simulation.
Or like
the blood of your ancestors is
yeah,
what you're playing.
exactly. I think that concept is really good.
Die before.
Alright, let's see.
That's kind of the idea.
On
Their
DNA.
genes, yeah, exactly.
Okay, now it's gonna go way worse because it's been 3 years that I've been playing this, so I don't even know how to select this game.
Since you played.
Yeah. So, how do you take a
Can you climb up
weapon?
more to the left?
Okay, cool.
Can't you climb more?
I'm not gonna. No, I'm not gonna jump in the fire either, though. How do you select the target?
But you ran into the fire?
How do you even fight?
With the square. And you counter with circle.
with square, okay. So I successfully land 2 counters and I don't know how to finish them off. That's kind of sad. There you go. Suck on that.
That looked like the lamest fight in history.
Yeah, well, I don't know what I'm doing anyway, so...
You could have assassinated him.
Well, now you can't.
That's
Is it
good.
too
That's
soon to
good.
say?
There you go.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah.
Come on, camera! Cooperate, please. Come on! Are you seeing this? This camera.
The
seriously.
most boring fight in history? Yeah, I saw it.
Let's get on and instead of
let's
trying
not do
to
this.
No.
Let's do something else.
Yeah, since we're horribly failing at this. But you always hear like, oh, Assassin's Creed, that's like a super easy game. You can see people. It's quite hard.
It is, but we're in a pretty hard area now.
No, it was medium. We're just noobs.
Yeah,
I see.
Alright, I'll just fast travel to Nessa now.
Oh, can actually fast travel?
Yeah, of course you can.
Oh.
But it's more fun to sit around.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a completionist like me, because you'll just end up doing all sorts of little missions on the way.
I guess.
Alright, this is Nesta. So this is the beginning of the game. Oh yeah, or sort of where you begin the game.
Area.
Of course, Nassau is one of those other famous pirates' nests. That's maybe the starting
looks like
area.
A western with palm trees.
Western with palm trees. That's quite interesting. I think the aesthetic that they went for with this, sort of the ramshackle wooden buildings. I'm not too sure that it's... Of course, wooden buildings, yes.
But it feels like it's lacking color for the Caribbean.
Well, for nowadays Caribbean, yes. Everybody that's been to it would say it would see. I mean, they would never leave
But
their
this
house in a
looks
state
like-
like
But
this.
to
Like
be
a
fair,
western saloon.
that's something that video games have been having for a long time and is finally improving now, is that they went to this less colored, less, how do I say it, with less contrast and less saturation when it comes to color. I don't know what the reason behind it is. Perhaps because it then is, I don't know, less heavy on the GPU, or I don't know.
No.
I think less heavy on the site, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
What were you going to say, Tara?
A large part of it is when they're doing stuff with historical, when they're doing historical-based games, they draw a lot of reference material from films which also discuss the same period, and a lot of the films were, of course, made back either from the sort of 60s, where color was not as intense as it was. So there's this kind of tradition of thinking about the past as being desaturated, even though we know that it's not. But everything we see in films and photos from the past, representing the past, has been that. So you get that carry on.
That makes sense, because when you see a colored black and white picture. You know, that sometimes people colorize a picture of like very olden days. That you see that it's nowhere near as bright as a picture of today would be.
Yeah.
So it's basically the same then. All right.
So it's the same problem as with ancient Greek games, I guess, and or games based on ancient Greece and the white marbles and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And same with Egypt as well. There's always that same sandstone rather than being the bright colours that it would have been painted in. Yeah. But it's just how we're used to seeing it. So that's how when you talk to people who are designing games, they're like, no, this is how the past was, because that's their imagination of it, and that's what they're used to seeing in other movies. So it's, tropes on tropes.
Yeah.
No, I think it would be interesting because you know how they do these, say they have these Greek marble statues or Roman marble statues, and they cast colors over them, or they make a replica and color it, and people kind of think it's clownish, or they don't take it seriously because they think it's supposed to be this sort of pristine white thing, and then once it colors it feels more childish. But I wonder what would happen to a game like this if all these houses were brightly colored and maybe, you know, a bit worn by the sun and weather, because it looks really ramshackle.
It looks more like the Wild West, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a pirate town, but of course Nassau was not just a pirate town. I mean, the people are walking around here, they're not all wearing eye patches and wooden legs. So it's, yeah.
So, does this game discuss the issue of slavery at all?
This one, yeah.
Yeah. Your Malenge, or what's his name?
Yes,
your
your
black
first mate.
fellow ship. Yeah, the first mate. Yeah, indeed.
Yes, of course, and then the sort of spin-off of this one, you have to help me with the name, where Evelyn plays the lead character.
Oh, yeah.
That goes way more into the issue of slavery and representation.
But you can play as the first mate as well.
Yeah,
in the
for
DLC.
the DLC. True, that's true.
So do we want to have a bit of a discussion and then switch to Unity?
Well, one of the things... so this is what I was looking for. So this is actually a nice set of famous stairs from Nassau. I think these are the ones anyway. They don't have that many lying around. And this is where one of the sort of... if I remember correctly, this is where one of the little discussions between Abstergo designers and historians is going on.
Yep.
So, let's have a look.
Okay.
So it's a 65 steps carved directly into the promontory rock. This is carved by slaves, so it is definitely mentioned whenever they have. So there we go. This is the within brackets is what the people have been saying. So Sodom my honeymoon. Too bad the dates don't match your virtual experience. Local legend was that the steps were carved to honor Queen Victoria's reign. One step for every year. So basically they put something in here that definitely wasn't around at this time, but they saw it coming. Anyway, it's a cool structure. I say we sneak it in. Note, no fudging dates. You're such a killjoy. It's too iconic to leave out. It goes in. So these are all
people back at Abstergo. So one of them's the like lead designer, and one of them's the head of human resources, and one of them's a artist, I believe.
Yeah.
From memory, yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting little discussion that's going on sort of authenticity within the game, and of course, you know, mixing it up with what is iconic in the Caribbean and what is fun also to have a look at. So they sneak it in. And another thing that they sneak in, what I want to go to now, I think if we can directly. Let's see. I think we can go there directly.
But it's interesting that they're quite open about this discussion, which basically says, we know it's not accurate, but we don't care. We're going to do it anyway, because it's so iconic that it adds to the authenticity even though it's not accurate.
Yeah.
because it makes it feel authentically like we're in Nassau.
Yeah, it's one of the great things about Black Flag, I think, is that if you go into the like Abstergo layer and walk around in the games kind of studio, there's a lot of emails back and forth between designers as well, which kind of talks about what they're doing there. Like, are they making a simulation of history, or is it an entertainment thing? And they kind of go backwards and forwards between how they handle that and whether they want to put in like witch doctors and zombies into their game because that's exciting and fun. And they're like, well, no, that's not what we deal with, but we don't want to do the boring history. So there's always this kind of like, or they make really explicit that tension between the fun of being in a game and the constraint of history, or the constraint of like whole scale.
But there are other games that solve that in a pretty intelligent manner. Like you have the Call of Duty series, which is weird to name intelligence and Call of Duty in one sentence. But that's another topic. Where they do a shooter with a story and everything and weapons and blah blah blah. And then they do a separate mini Nazi zombies game. You know, so they don't have to implement it in the actual game, and they can still go through the storyline without bringing zombies in, and then they can do this one fun mode. Basically can be done in any game. So
Interesting.
yeah, I don't know.
We can actually, after I've shown this, we can go outside into the Abstergo offices and look at some of those emails.
Cool.
So
Where are we now?
we are now in Maya City, on which I guess is the Isla de Juventud in Cuba.
Huh?
Yes.
Wait. A Mayan city in Cuba?
Yes. So that's one of the things where I think that authenticity definitely, or accuracy definitely gave way. Oh dear. To fight for my life here.
This is where you say, no kitty, that's a bad kitty.
So here you go. We have here...
You got a mark.
Yeah, I know. We get out our pan flute and we'll just enjoy these lovely Mayan ruins in the middle of Cuba, or the middle of the Isla de Juventud in Cuba, which is a lovely national park with some great sites in there as well, but definitely not...
No Mayan ruins?
No Mayans there. I mean, how much contact there was between the Caribbean islands and the Mayans on the mainland, that still is a big issue, in the Caribbean at least, not so much for the Mayan scholars.
This looks more like Belize or Central
This is typical Chichen Itza kind of stuff that you can see in Mexico. But to be fair, they also put one in the main one. They put Tulum. They put in Yucatan. But this is really one of those things that I was like, especially in contrast to the discussion you had earlier, where they sort of indicate, well, it's too iconic. We have to put it in with the stairs. A little stairs in Nassau that probably many cruise tourists have seen. But other people, it's not a big deal probably. But here they just put in a whole Mayan civilization or city in where it definitely was not at.
Is there any text about this in the database?
No, there's not. It's not sort of discussed at all.
Huh.
So this really grinds my gears, I can say. But it doesn't really. I understand why it's in there, because it's way more fun, especially for if you're talking about, of course, parkour, to be scaling Mayan temples than to be running around in a flat plaza site in the Caribbean. Oh yes, some action on screen. You know, I can be killing them, but
your mark actually got taken out by a tiger.
Yeah.
That's a jaguar.
Oh.
Fun fact: jaguars are actually leopards, or leopards, and the other one is
cheetah.
Cheetah, that have the opposite of albinism, which is animism or something. Melanism, yeah.
Melanism, yeah.
Yeah. So.
But tigers have stripes. This was a black thing.
It's a kitty.
You called it a tiger.
Shut up! It's a kitty. Shut up.
Speaking of
that's the final time I'm dying in this game.
You mean desynchronizing?
Let's get out to desynchronizing.
Well, it's how funny would it be that every time, like in the Souls games, when you say you desynchronized?
That would be a lot better for my confidence there, I think. Alright.
Okay, so we can see these emails you were talking about?
Yeah, sure. Let's see if we can... how do we get there again? I forgot. Maybe Tara can help me out here. I'm sure that we can actually get there. But how do we get there again?
Is it?
It's somewhere in options actually. You can just sort of get out of the... Maybe it's this...
And it's not the database?
Is it
Wait,
just quit?
there we go.
Yeah.
Exit Animus. There you go. It was sort of hidden in the quit. I don't want to quit the game, but of course you're actually quitting the game to get back to your office chair.
Oh wow, I've never used that option.
You're not
So
a
probably have
quitter?
many who have been playing this game. Because this, I tell you, is a lot less exciting to me.
Yeah,
Oh,
this
that's-
is very boring. This
It's
part
an
of the
office.
game.
This
I
is like
love the
completely different from the
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed 1 and 2,
Very
where
different.
you
Oh,
were
look,
in
they
a
have
lab.
puppets. Miniatures.
So these are actually reflective of the armors that I think, or no, the characters I've been encountering and assassinate in the game.
Why is
So-
Ezio there?
Is he Ezio?
They're all characters from the various different games.
Ah,
So
yeah.
so you're basically like playing as a game developer at the moment, and these are like the things which you've developed or worked with. So if you walk around the office, you find like little notes as well, which is part of like a bigger conspiracy about the Templars actually existing in the modern day still as well, which is like a whole different storyline to go off on. There you go, the sticky notes, yeah.
Yeah.
And then yeah, there's like the whole email chains, and if you walk around and talk to people or listen to people, they talk about stuff. Like the tensions of game development and history stuff as well. I love the Abstergo stuff. Most people despise it, but
I kind of like it, but it really takes you out of the real game. Or the
Yeah,
real
but
I like
it's
it.
like
I
a
like it
different
from a sort of a background, different viewpoint kind of thing, you know, for our discussion, but not really for gameplay.
Can
And
you?
it actually takes you out of the game too much. I think, in my
I
opinion.
think you have to see it as a different game almost.
Yeah.
No, or like a meta level.
Can you scan the QR codes and see if they are?
Which one do you want me to scan? So of course
Just-
here we...
No, I mean if you can scan the QR codes with your phone and see if the QR codes are actually.
working.
Yeah,
No, it disappeared.
I don't think
they
they
don't
are.
go anywhere. No, they don't go anywhere.
because
You
in
already tried.
Yeah.
Wait, let me
yeah,
get this computer.
that's bad because in the Talos principle all the QR codes work and they generate you the text that you see when you
That's a
hover,
cool touch.
which is pretty
This
awesome.
is the same.
Yeah, that's the same. I'm trying to see where I could actually get access to the emails
Oh,
again, but... No, that was not the same. No.
They're different.
It's just
office.
from your workstation.
Yeah.
Oh, there's more notes.
Ooh. Ah. Shit. Why did we do this again?
What is this?
It's like a little
Mini game.
puzzle. There we go. So there's all sort of extra things that you can access here, including background information like little things like this. So there's lots of office politics going on.
This kind of sums up the game, right? It's a little light on facts.
Well, that having been said, maybe you want to move to a more of a discussion of the game.
Yeah, let's
Cool.
do that.
I'll actually you start discussing, and I'll switch out the games.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, so do we have any feedback yet from the stream chat?
Well, we had a bit of a discussion, so let's maybe start by maybe setting kind of definitions of the terms that we're using, and be more clear on what we mean about authenticity and accuracy.
Okay, so it's mostly been about this authenticity, accuracy. How do we define these things? What's what? Okay. So we should temporarily not be having any video while we're just switching the games over?
Yeah, but we still have audio, right?
But we have the audio, yeah. Yeah, and we also have opening beer in the background.
Yes.
I think the main difference is that authenticity, the way it's seen in these games, it's more of an essence thing. Like, is the essence of the game authentic? Does it feel authentic? Does it appear authentic? Does it, does it make you feel like, oh, this could have happened? Or while it's not necessarily accurate, like you can mix dates and time periods and so on. Tara?
Oh, sorry. I muted myself. Yeah, I think that like when you talk to a lot of the designers, there's like this real rift between a lot of the artists tend to think of accuracy as being completely aesthetic. So it's like, do these things measure the same? Do they look the same as what they would have? And then you get into that weird tension that we talked about before of how we expect things to look. So like we imagine the past in a very particular way. And no matter how many times people tell you, like, the marbles were colored or, ancient Egypt was colored, that's not how we think of it. And so then it's like, when you want to talk about accuracy to an artist, you're like, well, this is how the past probably looked. And they're like, but that's not how people expect the past to look. So that's not accurate to us. But then on the other side of that, you have your designers, a lot of the time, who want to talk about, like, the authenticity of the experience. So they're not so concerned about how, like, if the building is the correct size or if that building even existed in that time. It's about crafting that experience that people kind of are like, yeah, this feels like how I imagine being a pirate in the Caribbean would have been. And those things are, again, completely separate to what us as heritage professionals talk about a lot of the time is accuracy and authenticity. So
I think it's interesting where you mentioned that there's this difference between what the past was like and what we sort of idealize the past to have been like, because of the way our thinking has been sort of programmed by the past and the remains of the past. Like a lot of the times we think of the tangible aspects of the past because that's what remains and that's what we know about.
Yeah.
And how that looks now rather than how it may have looked.
Yeah, I think Eric brought up a really interesting point in the chat earlier, which is that a lot of the time when we make games about the past, we tend to think of it as the past, right? So like we're trying to construct what happened in the past or trying to create a simulation of that. And there's always that tension when we talk about it as historians, especially now that we've gone through like post-processualism and whatnot, that we kind of understand that there's the potential or there is room to have many different interpretations or many different understandings of the past. So like whose kind of approach are you taking? And is that more accurate or less accurate than somebody else's idea about the past? Or is that even a problem? Or could we deal with subjectivity in this space? And something which Black Flag kind of does is to at least bring up that like subjectivity and bring up the role of games designers as selecting or kind of writing the history as it comes, that they're not just throwing history down as it was. They have a role in constructing it in much the same way that us as historians have, or as archaeologists, have a role in constructing the stories of the past from the evidential remains. So a similarity there in process. But